Ethan's black Mercedes glided through the private driveway of the Solomon estate, its polished paint reflecting the golden afternoon sun. He sat upright, a mix of anticipation and irritation churning in his chest. Beside him, Tina adjusted her designer scarf, glanced at the sprawling estate, and let a faint smirk play across her lips. "This place is big," she said lightly, letting the words float like a casual compliment. But the undertone was sharper, a silent judgment hidden beneath her poise. "Very old-fashioned, though, don't you think? The decor, the furniture, it's a little dated." Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is my mother's home," he thought. "She built this." The car stopped in front of the estate, and the Ethan opened the door. Tina stepped out gracefully, heels clicking against the marble driveway, sunglasses reflecting the sun. She paused at the entrance, as though the grandeur itself needed her approval. Ethan followed silently, carrying a polite smile, but his fingers curled around the car keys with restrained tension. Inside, the estate smelled of polished wood, fresh flowers, and a faint trace of citrus, an invisible signature of elegance and care. Mrs. Grace Solomon, seated in her living room with a book in hand, rose slowly. She studied Tina with eyes that missed nothing. The silence stretched, thick and measured, until Tina decided to fill it. "Oh, this is charming," Tina said, voice airy, her tone a thread of condescension masked as praise. She walked past the butler, corrected the arrangement of flowers on the coffee table, and lightly mocked the antique vases. "I think these should really go somewhere else. The color clashes with the curtains, don't you think?" Mrs. Grace did not flinch. She simply smiled, a quiet, calm curve of lips that spoke more than words. She watched Tina's performance, her subtle corrections, her judgment disguised as taste, and waited. Ethan felt heat rise to his face. "Tina, please," he said softly, but she ignored him, brushing past a housekeeper with a faint laugh, clearly satisfied with her own critique. And then, like a sudden thunderclap in a quiet room, Mrs. Grace spoke. "This is not the wife I chose for you," she said, voice calm, firm, carrying the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Her eyes did not shift, her presence filled the room. Tina froze, her smile faltering. "Excuse me? This is not the wife I chose for you," Mrs. Grace repeated, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. She did not elaborate. She did not apologize. She simply turned back to her chair, as though the statement alone carried the final verdict. Ethan's chest tightened. Anger bubbled up, controlled yet insistent. "Mom," he snapped, stepping forward. "I'm not marrying anyone else. I love her." "Then you may marry her alone," Mrs. Grace interrupted, calm as a winter morning. The words were not cruel, but they struck like steel. She did not wait for a reaction, did not soften the blow. She simply returned to her book, leaving Ethan standing, stunned, and internally writhing. Tina's face paled, then hardened. She looked at Ethan, then at Mrs. Grace, then around the room, her designer bag dangling precariously from one arm. Your mother, did you hear her?" she hissed under her breath, a venom restrained by her polished demeanor. Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to defend her, to rebuke her, but the fight with his mother was not the fight he needed to win. Tina's sneer lingered, a reminder of arrogance, entitlement, and a sense of self that overshadowed kindness. The air in the estate remained taut, like a held breath, until the next subtle ripple arrived. Weeks later, Lily entered the scene again, not by accident, but by Mrs. Grace's invitation. She had come once to return a forgotten item from an earlier encounter, and Mrs. Grace had noted the girl's demeanor, her quiet intelligence, her gentle presence. "You're welcome here," Mrs. Grace had said softly, her eyes meeting Lily's with a warmth that made the young woman's heart still. "You can come as often as you like." Consider this your home too. Lily, cautious but moved, nodded, feeling for the first time in months that she belonged somewhere beyond her small world of ordinary streets and quiet kindness. The estate, with all its grandeur, suddenly felt safe, not intimidating, because of Mrs. Grace's deliberate grace. Ethan noticed her, of course. He had been present during one of her visits, watching from across the grand hallway as Lily helped the staff organize a small charity drive, her movements careful, her smile genuine. Tina, seeing her, leaned slightly forward and whispered sarcastically to a friend, loud enough for Ethan to hear, "Who does she think she is? Playing the perfect little angel in my presence?" Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. He bit the inside of his cheek, watched Lily quietly, noting how her presence made the room warmer, lighter, yet calm and unassuming. He felt a pang, frustration at himself for never noticing sooner, shame at how much he had allowed appearances to dictate his choices. Tina, emboldened by Ethan's silence, continued subtly humiliating Lily. She corrected her stance, mocked her accent when speaking to a staff member, and scoffed at the way Lily offered simple, heartfelt help to anyone in need. Ethan's fingers twitched, a quiet internal struggle. He wanted to say something, to step in, to correct her, but he did nothing, still bound by the complicated loyalty of love and obligation. Meanwhile, Mrs. Grace smiled knowingly from the corner of the room, her sharp eyes noting every detail, every flicker of emotion in her son's expression. She could see the shift, faint yet undeniable, the cracks in Ethan's devotion to a woman whose kindness could not touch him, contrasted with Lily's quiet gravity that had already begun to anchor his thoughts. Days turned into weeks. Lily came to the estate more often, not out of obligation but at Mrs. Grace's encouragement. The two women shared conversations, stories, and quiet moments over tea. Lily's natural warmth, intelligence, and calm demeanor impressed everyone around her, even the staff who had long served the Solomon household. She was becoming a part of the family's rhythm without ever asking to belong. Ethan watched from the sidelines, his heart stirring in ways he hadn't anticipated. He noticed the little things, the way Lily smiled without arrogance, how she spoke to everyone with respect, how her laugh, quiet and genuine, seemed to linger in the room long after it faded. He noticed it all, and it made the world he had carefully curated seem shallow and hollow by comparison. And then one evening, as Lily was leaving after helping organize a small fundraiser, Mrs. Grace leaned toward Ethan and whispered softly, deliberately, "Stay close. God doesn't waste good hearts." Ethan froze, her words sinking into him like a quiet command. His eyes followed Lily as she left, disappearing into the driveway. Something shifted inside him. He didn't fully understand it yet, but a seed had been planted, a question, a longing, a realization that perhaps the life he had thought he wanted was not the one his heart truly sought. Tina, unaware of the silent transformation unfolding before her, continued to occupy space with her sharp words, her arrogance, and her polished veneer. But Ethan's gaze lingered elsewhere, and a quiet rebellion began, not of action, but of attention. The kind of attention that notices, that weighs, that begins to tilt the axis of destiny. The estate settled into an uneasy quiet as night fell, shadows lengthening across the marble floors. In that calm, in that pause, the stakes were quietly realigning. The woman Ethan had overlooked, the one society might have deemed ordinary, had already begun shaping his world in ways he could not yet name. Stay close. God doesn't waste good hearts. The words echoed softly, a promise, a warning, and a foreshadowing all at once. The collision of hearts, choices, and destiny was underway, and no one, not even Ethan, could turn it back now.
I gave you pieces of my heart, thinking you would keep